In this episode of Big Dreams, meet Kate Mills, our district ELA coach.
My name is Kate Mills, and I'm the K-5 ELA coach for the district.
Can you tell us about your educational background?
So I taught 4th grade for 9 years before coming to Red Bank, and this is my second year in Red Bank. In Red Bank, I have served as a literacy interventionist before transitioning to the ELA coach. Part of my work as a 4th grade teacher was teaching reading and writing workshops for those 9 years, and I would go to Teachers College at Columbia University every summer for week-long institutes on the teaching of reading and writing workshop. So the work that I'm doing right now is directly tied to training that I've received and my work in the classroom for those years.
How did your experience as an interventionist inform your work at the district level?
So as an interventionist, because I was focused on only one subject, teaching reading, it gave me a different perspective than I had as a classroom teacher. So I have the perspective of what it's like to teach every subject, which our K-5 teachers do, but I also, as an interventionist, learned sort of the nitty-gritty of teaching reading and saw that subject in a way that I hadn't before because it was my primary focus.
Can you tell us about the structure of Readers and Writers Workshop?
So both reading and writing workshop are structured in a 40 or 45 minute block. There's a 10-minute mini lesson where the teacher teaches the class a strategy directly. The teacher demonstrates it, and then the kids get a chance to try it. And then after that, the remaining time, like the remaining 25 to 30, 35 minutes, is independent practice, so independent reading or independent writing. And one of the reasons that reading and writing workshop are so effective is because kids are choosing what they're reading and choosing what they're writing. And because choice is a gateway to engagement, kids are really engaged in their work in both reading and writing workshop.
Can you tell us more about how Readers Workshop promotes student engagement?
So the first way, right, is that they are choosing what they're reading. So in reading workshop, they have choice over what books they want to read. So rather than the entire class reading a specific text, all kids are reading something called a Just Right book, which is a book at their independent level. And because kids are at all different levels, that means they're reading all different books. Play Kitty, that looks like a good one.
I have the same book as that.
Do you? Which one are you thinking?
I'm trying to find the same one
that she has, because that one looked good. There it is.
Alex, let's go, sweetie. Sherwin.
Hands on lap, fingers snap, back straight, chocolate shake on your rear, root beer, finger on lip, lip zip.
Can you give us an overview of Writers Workshop?
In writing workshop, they are choosing what they want to write about within the genre that you're studying as a class. So if you're writing personal narratives, which are true stories from your life, the kids are choosing what stories they're writing about. They're choosing what strategies they want to try that the teacher has taught them, and they're choosing the pace at which they move through the writing process.
How do Rigby assessments help determine the just right reading level?
So Rigby is a reading assessment that assesses a few different things. It assesses a child's fluency, so when they're reading aloud, how fluently they read, as well as their accuracy, so how many errors they have when they read. Part of the Rigby is asking the students to retell the story to get a sense if they understood the gist of the story and that the assessment is appropriate to be giving them at all. And then after that, there are comprehension questions. And the comprehension questions are both literal and inferential. And so looking at all of those components, the comprehension questions, the accuracy, and the fluency, you can determine if the text level is independent or just right for a student.
When the children are reading, what is the role of the teacher?
So the bulk of the reading workshop block is independent reading time, and that is really the most important part of the time. The mini lesson isn't most important. The independent reading is most important because it's during that time that the teacher has one-on-one conferences with students or pulls students for strategy lessons in 4th and 5th grade, they might also pull them for guided reading groups. And so it's during that independent reading time that the teacher is able to target the specific needs of students and really differentiate what the students need as readers.
Can you tell us about the classroom libraries?
So classroom libraries are really the heart of a reading workshop classroom because it's there that students find the books that they'll love to read. They have tons of books because depending on the grade level or reading level for a student, they'll shop for books once a week at least and be taking out anywhere from 5 to 15 books depending on their reading level. And so the classroom library is really important because it's the place where students will find independent books for themselves that they'll love. And so the books need to be organized in such a way that they can find just right books of interest to them.
How does the teacher ensure that the text is challenging enough for the student?
So there are a few benchmarks for that. One could be the number of errors a student has across a chunk of the text, like 100 words or a few pages, and making sure that they have, around 95 to 100% accuracy is a judge if it's just right. If there are no errors, that could be a sign that the book might be too easy for them. Also, talking to the students about their comprehension, especially as they enter into grades 2 and higher, comprehension becomes more important, and there are signs that that they're doing inferential thinking, not just literal thinking. So when a student is only doing literal thinking, that might mean the text is too challenging. But if they are able to, read with no errors and they have total comprehension, both literal and inferential, that's a sign that the book might be too easy and not challenging. But research shows that the way that kids grow to be stronger readers is really by reading books that feel easy to them, that they don't really struggle through. So making sure that the book is really just right in that way is much more important than it being a challenging text.
How are readers and writers workshop related?
So they're totally separate, but they do support one another. So often the units of study that you're doing in reading align to writing. So if you're writing an essay, it might be that you're reading nonfiction and learning about structures in nonfiction that would support your essay writing.
Tell us a little more about Writers Workshop.
So a big part of writing workshop, especially as a unit starts, is teaching students gathering strategies or ways to brainstorm what they want to write about. And having, a few strategies that you teach the whole class and then a few extra ones that you're able to use in your conferences and your small groups to support students who are struggling is one way to help them, find things to write about. Another way is to study the work of real writers, and we call these mentors, just like they're teachers of writing to us. And so we learn, what do these real writers do that we could do in our own writing? And often those two things together make it so most students are able to be successful and find things that they want to write about.
Tell us about publishing.
So publishing is a little bit tricky because kids' pieces aren't going to be perfect. So instead of thinking of perfect published pieces, we can call them polished pieces. And the goal is for students to show everything that they learned across a unit, but independently. So that means the teacher isn't editing it for them, and part of that is because that takes away ownership of the writing piece for the students, but also because we want it to be a reflection of what the students can actually do. And so we want them to show the things that they learned and hold them accountable to the strategies and editing techniques and all of that they've learned, but making sure that our expectations are realistic. So when they publish a piece, it's often cleaned up and polished, but it's never going to be perfect.
How often do students publish?
Every unit, students publish a piece of writing, and a unit lasts anywhere between 4 and 6 weeks typically. And an important part of the publishing process is also making sure that we're sharing our writing with others. So classrooms will have a celebration where they share their writing within the class. They might invite families or other students to see it. They'll hang their pieces up for the school to see. So making their pieces published and public every unit is a really important part of the writing process.
What evidence do we have that Writer's Workshop is effective?
So, the assessment side of it is that at the beginning and end of every unit, students do a piece of writing called an on-demand assessment. So as you're beginning a unit, you give one writing workshop period for the kids to create the piece of writing that you're getting ready to teach them in the unit. And at the end of the unit, they have a second writing workshop period to write one new piece in that period. And looking across those pieces, they're on demand from the beginning to the end of the unit. There's always really clear growth. Apart from that formal assessment, just seeing kids' love for writing, which is the ultimate goal in both reading and writing workshop, that our kids become not just readers and writers because we have it as a subject in school, but that they become lifelong readers and writers outside of school. A second grade teacher shared a few weeks ago that one of her students came in excited to show something that she had written on her own over the weekend, sort of an independent writing project. And when that teacher said to the class, you too can take paper home if you want to write something over the weekend, there was this mad rush to the writing center and grabbing paper as if it were, the most exciting thing ever. So I think signs like that show that, of course, it's important that, students are growing and showing progress across the unit, but when they are excited and eager to write outside of school, I think that also speaks volumes to the success of Writing Workshop.
What do you love about the Red Bank Borough Public Schools?
I am a Red Bank resident and have been in education now for 11 years. And one of the things that I love are how dedicated the teachers are in the district. And as a Red Bank resident, especially knowing my kids will go to these schools eventually, I feel so lucky that there are teachers and educators that are so committed to making sure every student succeeds.